Hi, boys and girls. My name is Miss Rachel. Today is day 2 of our Influential Scientists and Inventors project. So, what you worked on previously on day 1 was going over in this section of the life information. So, as I was looking at my webpage, I was learning a lot about Katherine Johnson, and I learned that not only is she a scientist, but she is also an inventor as well. So, as I was reading and looking for information, I was able to find her birth date, which I demonstrated to you guys in the video. I kept reading on and I was able to find the location of when she was born, which is White Sulphur Springs in West Virginia. I later kept reading on and found that the family members that she had growing up were her brothers, Horace and Charles, and her sister Margaret. And her parents' names were Jolette Coleman and Joshua Coleman. I kept reading and looking at the research on the page and found that she had some daughters before she passed away, which were Jolette, Constance, and Catherine Gobley. Her education were both West Virginia State College and West Virginia University. So after I finished that information, I did also go and include a quote from the primary source. And the quote from Katherine Johnson says, "Like what you do, and then you will do your best." So I thought that was a really sweet quote that she said, and I thought that it would really add something to my project. So I went and added that in there. I made sure that I put quotations and punctuation, and then I also made sure I wrote who said the quote, which in this case was Katherine Johnson. So now moving forward in our project today we are going to be doing this box, which is 3 important life events. So when starting this, I'm going to again scroll down to my website page. And I really like the website page I was using to find my own other information. So I'm going to go ahead and use that same one. And I wanted to point out that to try and remember what websites you are using, if maybe you wanted to jot them down and make a little list, because as you saw yesterday, your exit ticket is to ask or to answer what websites you used when you grow up. And like me in college right now and learning to make sure I'm citing sources, you always want to cite a source because you don't want to take credit for other people's work. You want to make sure that you give somebody credit for that. So that's going to come down later on in the line in your education. But just to kind of introduce you to that, it's just important to write down those websites that you are using so that when you are asked questions about where you got the information from, you can say where. So just keep that in mind moving forward and try to remember to write down the websites that you are using. So let's get started today. I'm going to go in again and I am going to highlight that website I used. I am going to copy it. I'm going to open a new tab and then I'm going to paste it. So here's my web page again. I am going to go up and search. Her name is already in here. Going to select Katherine Johnson. And now I am going to split my screen so that I am able to, oh, look, we're already over here. So that we can see both parts of the project. Okay, so now that I went ahead and split my screen, let me move my face out of the way a little bit. So I'm going up to here where we are putting in our information. And like I mentioned on the day previous, you could always be writing this information down as you're reading and then inputting it into your document. So we're looking for 3 important events in Katherine Johnson's life. So as I was reading, I came across in the first paragraph where it's saying, who is Katherine Johnson? And it says that she began working in aerodynamics as a computer in 1952, and after the formation of NASA, she performed the calculations that set astronauts into orbit in the early 1960s and the moon in 1969. So, this to me is an amazing event that happened in Katherine Johnson's life and something that she was a part of that I think she should always be remembered for. So I'm going to take that right here. I'm going to highlight it just so I can see what I'm looking at a little bit easier. That always helps me. It's just a helpful tool that I always use when I'm doing work. And now I'm going to come over here to our box. And where it says yours will say type here, you can just backspace and delete that. So I'm going to kind of reword this a little bit. So after looking at that and reading that, I'm going to say that we can just use her last name here just to save space instead of writing her whole name. It's up to you if you want, if it fits and you want to use your influential individual's full name, you can go ahead and do so. So I'm just going to go ahead and use her last name and say Johnson performed the calculations that sent astronauts into orbit in the early 1960s and to the moon in 1969. So now I can go and I can reread my writing. So I see that I wrote orbit wrong. I said orbot. So we're going to delete that O and correct that. That's that. Oh, look. And I did another T. It's hard to see with my cursor, but it's important that, or it's helpful that our computers underline things for us so that we can see when we make mistakes and we can always go back and check them. So I'm going to reread that to myself. So Johnson performed the calculations that sent astronauts into orbit in the early 1960s and to the moon in 1969. So I think that's an important life event for Catherine because it was a very accomplishing moment in her life. So now I'm going to go back to my reading. And as I kept reading on, I also came across another very interesting event that happened towards the end of our reading. So I'm going to scroll down. So as I was reading, since I already did read this entire document, I found that it says in November 2015, President Barack Obama presented Johnson with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So that is such an amazing honor that she got that from the president at the time. So I think that should be included somewhere in this project as a very special event in Katherine Johnson's life. So I'm going to go ahead and where it says event 2. And like I said before, I am going to kind of rephrase that a little bit and put that into my own words. So I'm going to start again with her name. So Johnson was presented. Actually, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to include the date first because you always want to make sure we're including the dates in our events. So it says in November of 2015. So I'm going to say in November. I want to make sure we're capitalizing that N in November. In November 2015, president, and he is a person, so he gets capitalized. Oh, look, I'm writing all capitals. And I'm going to click, make sure with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Hold on, capitals again. I'm going crazy today. Okay, so now I'm going to look back and like here, it's underlined for us. So now we know that something is wrong. So I am going to right click and correct the correct spelling of president. Now I am going to adjust this a little bit just so we can see all of the words in here. So I think that will look better. There we go. So I'm going to reread it to myself. In November 2015, President Barack Obama, that's his last name, that needs to be capitalized. See, it's always important that we are rereading. In November 2015, President Barack Obama presented Johnson with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and I need to punctuate that with a period at the end. Now, I would do the same steps over again and find an additional event, But before I let you go and have you work on this by yourself, I wanted to point out that because these are events, we want to make sure that they go in order and follow some sort of a timeline. So we see that event number one took place in 1969, and that this event took place in November of 2015. So if I found another event that took place somewhere in the middle of these 2 years, let's say in the year 2000, I would want to take this block and I would want to move it. Oh, look, now we're upside down. And I would want to move it to the bottom here. Now, this way, when we're looking at the information, oh, my computer's lagging. So this way, when we're looking at our information, it follows a chronological order. So from start to finish, it goes from 1969, then, for example, in the 2000s, and then it would go into event number 3 that occurred in November of 2015. So you want to make sure that you're looking for those dates because they need to be included in this section and they also need to be in order. So make sure when you're looking for that information for your influential scientist or inventor that you're doing so. So that is where we will be ending our project for the day today. So when you are looking at your final piece, you should have the life information block filled out. And then today you should have 3 important life events. Tomorrow, we will be finishing up our project and we will talk about why we celebrated our specific individual and the life and legacy that they have or that they left behind. And then we will also finish up with some extra information. But like I said, as for today, we are just working on those 3 important life events. And like mentioned earlier in this video, make sure you are writing down the websites that you use so that we know where your information is coming from if they are asked in your exit ticket. So good luck. I hope that you find some really important events, and I can't wait to see these projects tomorrow when they are completed. Bye.